Talks about all the people that are there that day to enter into the covenant. And I just love how it mentions the foreigner here. We often hear it said so much that, that when we talk about keeping the commandments, that covenant was only made with Israel. That was only made with those people at that time. Because not only do we have foreigners being mentioned here as coming into covenant and therefore grafting into Israel, we have grafting in happening way before Paul's letters. We also have him mentioning that this covenant is being made not just with the people that are there on that day. There are other people that are going to be party to this covenant that aren't there at that time. So for me, I've kind of always considered that that's how the covenant applies throughout all the generations. So you can't say, that covenant was just made with them back then at that one point in time in history, and it doesn't apply to anyone afterwards.
Yeah.
It wasn't just made with them.
I've heard that definitely, that people say, the law of Moses was just made for the Jews.
Right.
And you're like, wait a minute, what? Which law are you reading? Because I'm pretty sure it included anyone who wanted to come into the terms of the covenant by obeying the commandments and belief and faith in God. You're engrafted in the covenant, right?
And that's also them not understanding the difference between Israel and the Jews. The Jews are only one small fraction of Israel.
Right.
So, while it's part of that statement is true that yes, the Jews were some of the people that covenant was made with, there was 10 other tribes that the covenant was made with, plus all the people who came and joined themselves and grafted themselves into the nation of Israel.
That's right. And which I think even those verses kind of elaborate on that a little bit, doesn't it? In the part where it says, verse 11, where it says, your little ones, your wives, the alien who's within your camps, from the one who chops your wood to the one who draws your water.
Yeah.
So
like even the servants and stuff.
Right, servant. And I'm guessing from that context, maybe it's alluding that some of the aliens who are not natural-born Hebrews were from a different bloodline, but they were the ones that maybe came in to work their way, so to speak, to find a job amongst the people as an alien among them, right? Which is why last week in our Torah portion last time, we talked a lot about the alien, the widow, and the orphan, and how they were to be treated, right? They were to, be cared for, or to be mindful of, that they were among you and to treat them equally. So I thought that was interesting. Well, we have, there's a lot there, and I think that it is an important distinction to make, because some people kind of get wrapped up in this idea of the cultural way that we currently use the term Jew.
Right.
And they just think it means anyone who's Israeli, but then they're like, what? But then you have to remember the Bible tells us that there are 12 sons of Jacob who became the 12 tribes of Israel, and that we had Naphtali, we had Dan, we have Asher, we have Zebulun, Issachar. So instead of saying this, the Issacharians, culturally over time, after the Nebuchadnezzar invaded and the exiles came back, then culturally they just started referring to themselves as the Jews because they were mainly consistent of Judah. Right. Even though there were some Benjaminites mixed in, and there was, like I've done in other videos, I've explained that there were some people from the tribe of Zebulun and Asher and Issachar had come back and repented and got in with them. There were some Levites there as well. But yet they just generally gave them a general term, or maybe it was the pagan nations around them that gave them the general term. I'm not sure.
I'm sure it probably started out as them being called that by outside nations, and then they just adapted that eventually. Yeah,
because they were just called the Yehudi, which was where we get this idea of Jew. So that's how over time it's translated into that word. But it doesn't accurately represent the people we're always reading about in the Bible, because it's not just that one tribe. We're talking about Israel being grafted in. It's all of us.
Right,
all the
and
tribes.
People were grafting in back when they came out of Egypt. So
even further back, I would say. But remember, in Abraham's household, Abraham had people within his household whom got circumcised with him in the covenant that were from Chaldea.
Yeah.
So these were some of his servants and people, but it was he was the head of his household, so everyone follows suit with his religious belief and his adherence to the commandments within his household. And that included circumcision, and that included people that were not of his bloodline. So I just think, including like what's his name? I want to say Ebenezer, but that's not correct. Eliezer, that's right. Eliezer, which apparently in the Latin just means Lazarus.
Oh,
I found that out later. Yeah, so that's a lot of fun. In the Hebrew, it means helped by God.
Oh, wonderful.
Eliezer, yeah. So very fitting for Lazarus and with Yeshua's interaction in the future.
I just want to point out that we know that truth by its nature is exclusive. But the offer to come into the covenant, that's completely inclusive. Anyone of any nation, of any bloodline can repent and come into the covenant with Yahweh. and believe in Jesus and keep the commandments, and that's what it is to be in covenant. It's not that, the call to join the covenant is not exclusive. The truth itself is exclusive, and it's going to exclude all these other falsehoods by nature of it being the truth. But when we have this idea that, the way that the Jews were teaching it back in the time of Jesus was it was exclusive to them. That's why the whole argument about circumcision came around, because they saw it as this exclusive thing that only those who are born of this covenant can enter it, and they get the honor of this and all of that. And so I just want to point out that the Father is inclusive. He calls everybody, it's just not everybody answers. So
yeah, I mean, yes, and that's why actually we're going to read about that.
Yeah.
About how the Father treats those who are not literally living in the land of Israel, neither today nor back in the past. Right. But he's going to bring them from all over the world, right? Everyone scattered from underneath the heaven.